Hello my friends, Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works workshop with my usual caveat these days, meaning that I don't work on instruments anymore. I am retired, but I still do work on them for close friends and relatives. This is a good friend that brought me this guitar. It is a Martin Sigma. I don't know the exact year of it, but it's an older one. The serial number is 803296. That's what's stamped on the headstock. And then there's another serial number, 26817, and then the last letter or number is unreadable. Could be a 3, could be an 8, could be a 0. I can't really honestly say what the last number is. The model number is a DM3Y, and then there's a C after that. It says Sigma Guitars, CF Martin Company inside. What's it in here for? It's in for a setup. He just acquired this guitar. The strings are pretty high right in this general area. So I thought I'd just do a quick before and after sound test. So here's what the chords sound like. My immediate impression is it's a little muted, it's a little dull sounding, but that could just be the strings. Strings on it, so alright, so hopefully we'll hear some kind of difference after we get this all set up. Let me just point out what I think all the problems are. First of all, there's a little bit of a belly bulge. Not too terribly bad, but we want to work on that. The biggest thing that I saw the instant it came to me was that this saddle is leaning forward and I'm angling my hand at approximately the same angle, maybe not even as much. It's angled a lot. It's about that much of an angle. It should be sitting straight up and down, but it's a huge angle. Now, why is that on an angle? Well, that means that, first of all, the saddle's too narrow. It's not filling the slot. And whenever you have a saddle pulling forward like that, you're going to break your bridge. It's an almost guaranteed given 100%. It's going to eventually break your bridge. It's not a good thing at all. So you want to get a saddle that fits your slot perfectly. In addition, this looks to be a plastic type saddle. We're going to get rid of that and put in a antler saddle. The action's a little bit high here. We're going to fix that. Whenever I tune it, I can hear the strings sliding through the nut here. You can hear them go zip, you know, like a little, like the tension, you turn, and all of a sudden it zips through. You can hear that zip as it zips through the nut. So we're going to fix that too by filing these slots wider. It's way better to have a wide slot than it is to have a pinched slot. If the slot is pinching the string, I guarantee you're going to have all kinds of problems. You're going to have buzzing problems, you're going to have dead tone sounding problems, you're going to have all kinds of issues. So you don't want them to be pinched in the slot. You want to make sure the string gets all the way to the bottom of the slot. And the other thing about it is that you want the slot filed on a consistent angle, one perfect plane. If there's a hump in the middle of it, your string will buzz in that nut. I'm not saying it will for sure, but it could easily buzz in there. So you want to make sure it's one consistent plane on the filing. That's about it. That's what we're going to do. Just some minor things. The strap button is not where I like to see it. It's better. This is the second best place, if you will. The best place would have been had the button been drilled in at a slight angle right here. Then that way the strap wraps around the whole heel and holds onto the button. And that way the guitar is locked in where it can't roll. Like if you, on this particular position, if you grab it right there, the guitar can still roll, see? But if you have it wrapped around here, it cannot roll. It can't roll at all. So anyway, that's just something for future you to think about if you're ever putting a strap button on a guitar. Do not ever put it right there. That's the worst of all. Because your strap hangs on that and your guitar will fall forward and it'll just come right off and hit the ground. The other place that's just about as bad is to wrap it around here and have the whole guitar hanging on yourself you know, from this angle. And the reason that's bad to wrap your strap around here is because that puts all the pressure on this joint. You've got the weight of the guitar pushing on this joint, and then if you lay your arm across it like that, now you're really putting a lot of pressure on that joint. Those are just some pointers and tips to help you ward off problems in the future. Well, come along, we're going to take a look at this thing and see if we can't fix it up. Okay, my friends, we've got the strings off. Now, if you think I was kidding or exaggerating about this saddle, look at this. See how much play is in that saddle? That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. That saddle should be sitting like that, straight up and down, and it was leaning that far forward. It's just ridiculous. And the more it leans forward, the more those strings are pulling on it harder and harder, and they're going to break your bridge across there. This is a piece of junk. It's also sitting on filler pieces, it looks like. I can't tell for sure, but that's what it looks like. It looks like they've got some filler pieces in there. Yep, there you go. So you never want that either. That also kills your tone. So this piece of plastic, it's going in the scrap bin. And the shim is going in the bin as well. We won't need any of that. While I've got the strings off of it and have access, I'm going to look inside the thing and see if I see anything inside it that would be an alarm. Okay, this has a brass plate where the strings go down through. So that's good and bad. It's not a bad thing in the sense that it keeps a tear out to a minimum. The bridge plate in this, it's not plywood, I don't think, but it looks like it's a kind of a cheap maple or something, and it's not even really a good piece of maple, honestly. I'm going to say it's maple, but I can't really honestly tell for sure what it is. But, you know, it's much better to have a really solid bridge plate in there made out of a good high-quality wood. This is not the place you should ever take shortcuts on an instrument. If you're building an instrument from scratch, put the highest grade materials you have in this general area. That includes the bridge and the bridge plate. Of course, the top itself goes without mention. That's for sure you want the best top you can get. So anyway, that looks pretty good in there. Otherwise, it doesn't look like there's any real problem. I'm not a huge fan of the brass plate in there, but on the other hand, it's not a real big deal problem either. We're going to leave it in there. I'm going to look down the fretboard to see if I see any high frets. I know some people think there's no way you can do that, but I can. I assure you 100% I can look down it and see if there's a problem. This one looks real good. I don't see any real problem. There could possibly be a little bit of highness right here, but again, that you've got to, you know, there's always a bend in the neck right here because the top is flat, the neck is at an angle. So there's always a little bit of a hump here. So if anything, it's right in this general area, but it doesn't look bad at all. As a sanity check, I'll just lay just a ruler on here and see how it looks and feels. I think it's pretty darn good. It looks really flat. It looks real good to me. Now I'm sure up here there'll probably be a little bit of rock. Well, I say that, but I don't see anything. A little bit, but it's coming from way back here, not here. So again, that's where I said I think the high frets are back here at the back, and they sure are. So there's a little bit of highness right in here, but otherwise it's not a problem. So, but because of that, and I'm planning to get the action down real low, I'm going to level this area here. I didn't see any high frets, but it's harder to see the low frets. And right now it looks like, well, maybe not. I thought maybe there was a little bit of lowness in here, but it looks pretty good actually. I do see a spot or two that's low, like right there and right here, a little bit right in here. So I'm going to go ahead and work on it a little bit more. All right, I'm going to call that good enough. I'm going to get the recrowning file out. This is the big one, but I'm going to look at see if that fits it very well. Probably not. not too bad. I'll just go ahead and use this one. I'm just rounding it off just a little bit. I don't need much. Okay, I'm going to call that good enough. Okay, the fretboard feels pretty good now, and I'm going to just take some 600 and lightly recrown it. This is actually does more crowning than you would believe. It knocks the sharp edges off the frets. I really like to do it this way rather than this way. You can do it either way. I prefer to do it this way. It makes the frets rounder. And you're not raising or lowering the height of one fret by doing it this way either. You're kind of keeping them all the same. The negative, there is one negative, but then again, it's kind of a negative positive, and that is that it does, you know, dull the fingerboard. But I'm planning to scrape the fingerboard anyway. So to me, that's kind of a positive in that I can see what I'm scraping really good because it's all dulled up. That's really nice now. That makes them feel just as smooth, and it also shines them up where they're pretty darn shiny. The nut fell off of this thing, so I'm just going to clean this nut up with this single edge razor blade, get rid of the glue that's on here. Now this is probably, well, it's not probably, this is a plastic nut, but my idea has always been that you don't spend your money on the nut end of the guitar. You won't get much return. Your sound wise, you know, a lot of people say, oh, it helps the sound, you know. Well, only if you're playing an open string. I mean, if you're noting the string, your nut is not in play at all. So the nut is not the place to spend your money. The only reason I would change the nut would be if the slots are too deep, because I don't like to build them up with super glue or anything. I would build a new nut if the slots are too deep. I would also build a nut if it's broken or, you know, some other problem like that, or if just generally speaking, if the nut's just too low, you know, you have to make a new nut then. But otherwise, if the nut is salvageable, I generally reuse the nut because it just saves so much time, and time is money. I'm going to use canopy glue. I'm just going to very lightly wipe across here to make sure there's nothing in the way here also on the end of the fretboard, because I want the nut to fit really snug and tight against this. Just looking for any extra glue. So we'll just put a dot or two, don't need very much. That's all I'm putting in there, not very much. And then we'll set this on here and work the glue up. It's pretty good. And this canopy glue is water soluble, so it won't hurt your finishes. And I'm just making sure I've got it in the right place, and I'll just let it do its thing. That stuff dries fairly quickly. I'll let that do its thing while I'm working on scraping the fretboard. I use the single edge razor blades. These are on the products I use page. These are the .012. In other words, they're 12 thousandths of an inch thick rather than only 9 thousandths, which is your standard. I want the thicker blades because they still have flex, but yet they're stronger for what I'm doing here. Now I'm going to hold this down on this first one because we just glued it. That looks pretty good. Now there's one more thing I do, and that is after I do that, I go back on every fret and just scrape it right along the edge, because the method piles up a lot of junk right against the fret, and this gets rid of that junk. Don't see much on this one, but some of them have a lot of stuff piled up. I like to work from one direction, so I just turn the guitar around. It's easier for me. Up here, it's important that you watch it because you can come down and scratch the top of the guitar. And then finally, I'll just clean it off one more time. Then we'll just oil it with a little bit of the Be Good oil. And you can do this a bunch of different ways. You just drop a drop or two. It doesn't take very much. That little bit right there will be more than enough, I would imagine. Might need a little bit more. Well, I was dumb there and knocked my nut off still. Let me hold that while I'm rubbing this one down. Yeah, I think I'm going to need just a little bit more than I got there. Not very much more. There we go. And you can do this with a cloth if you prefer. This is food safe type stuff. It's a beeswax and oil preservative type stuff. And it just makes the wood look so much better. And then I'll just take and wipe that right back off. That looks pretty nice. Almost like a brand new fretboard. And we'll put a little bit back here too. Don't need very much back here, but we'll get a little bit and just rub it in. While I've got the strings off of it, I'm going to do a light polish on this with some semichrome polish, and then we'll wax it. The reason for this is that cleaning and waxing a guitar, believe it or not, can make a big difference in the sound. It doesn't always. There's some are way more dramatic than others. I can't say how this one's going to react until I do it. But some of them really make a difference in the sound of the guitar. So don't need very much of this semi-chrome polish. Again, this is on the Products I Use page also. Pretty much everything I do, you'll find it on the Products I Use page. Now this semi-chrome polish, I like to really work it in, you know, just rub it in, rub it in, rub it in. Just keep buffing it like this. This will clean and buff out the guitar in addition. And then I'll take this and kind of clean it off, buff it off. A clean towel. You can see how shiny it's getting. This really does shine them up. I don't know that I can see a big difference, but I imagine you can probably see a difference in this area compared to, say, like this area. It's shiny, but this area is really shiny. It's just, I can see it. This is dull, shiny. This is really shiny, shiny. There's a difference. I don't know if it shows up on the camera or not, but for sure in person it does. Again, this will both clean and buff it out both. It does both things. You should always keep any kind of a polishing cloth like this, you should keep it turning quite a bit, very frequently. You know, grab different places on the cloth and rub it so that otherwise you'll not get the same luster or benefit from it. Yeah, that looks a whole lot better. There's a spot right there that's coming out. I think that got it. All right, so take a little bit more up on this last little bit, front edge up here. Doesn't take very much of this semi-chrome stuff. You can just barely use any, really. I got more on there than I needed on this. Okay, I think we'll call that good on that. Now we'll get out the Renaissance Wax. Again, another product that's on the Products I Use page. Renaissance Wax is a paste wax. It is the only wax I recommend. Well, any good furniture paste wax is fine too, but in terms of waxes, I do not ever use spray polishes. They're hard on your plastics. The chemicals will cause your plastics to curl up. Where this Renaissance Wax, it's the least destructive type of wax you could ever hope to find. They put it on priceless oil paintings. They put it on everything. This stuff is very good wax. Do not ever, with paste wax, do not ever do a very large area. See how I'm just doing a quarter of it here? And then instantly wipe it, buff it back off, because if you wait very long, it'll be very hard to get off. Now, having said that, Renaissance Wax is the most forgiving of the paste waxes I've ever found. You can get it off easier than you can get off most other paste waxes. It looks really good. If you find you can't get it off, just go back over it with some more paste wax and then take it right back off immediately, and it'll come off a lot easier or buff out a lot easier. Again, keep the rag turning a lot. That looks real good. All right, we'll move on up to the front part. That looks really good. Looks like $1 million compared to where we started. I imagine it'll have a little bit of an effect on the sound too. Maybe not too much, but a little bit. Paste waxes will benefit your sound much more than, say, a chemical type wax, the liquid polishes. They don't have much redeeming qualities when it comes to. The only thing a liquid polish does is
It may make it look a little better, but it won't add anything to the sound, and it will ruin your plastic pick guards and things like that over time. Ask me how I know these things. I've seen it happen. Okay, that's great. That's really, really nice. Very shiny. Looks like a brand new guitar just about. Turn it different ways, you can see the little bit of paste wax in a place or two where you might have missed. So it's always good to go over it, you know, look at it in different lights. That looks pretty good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get busy and make this saddle. Well, I've got the saddle installed. I got the first string on. I don't know if this saddle is at the right height or not. I am just going to go ahead and string it and get that part done, and I'll take the strings back off if I need to adjust it. It's not a big deal. I just take them loose at the saddle anyway. I am going to show you how I put strings on again. I've shown this a bunch of times. I'll zoom it in just a little bit. So I just take the, you know, once you get it anchored down at the bridge, you line your string up, of course, here. On these base side here, on the base side, you always start from the inside, go this way around, and you wrap it around and wrap it around, you know, making sure that you're wrapping with the loose end goes up the post. The bottom end of the string, the important part, is going down the post. That's what you want. You want your wraps to go down the post. So this takes care of that. This is a much faster way to do it. Then after you get that, then you just pull it up tight, and your string is almost tight already. You barely have to turn it at all, and you can see that your string is already tight. So you don't even really need a string winder when you do it this way. And I'll demonstrate that one more time. Put the string in up at the bridge first, of course, and lock that in. Then line it up, go around the outside of the post like I'm doing here. Wrap it around once, and, you know, like half again, and then come back through the hole over the top of the other strings. You know, you make sure that when you put it through here that you're going over the top of the strings you've wrapped around the post. And then just pull it straight up like that. And again, you're already tight. Doesn't take much at all. You can cut them off flush with the top of your post. That way they won't rattle and make other crazy noises. Now on this side I do it a bit different. Let me show you. Because these strings are so much smaller, you do the same basic thing. You go from the inside out like this, but the difference is you're going to go straight through the hole first thing, like this, and then you go back around the post that way with the end, and you come underneath here. You leave about, see how much slack I'm leaving about right here between my fingers are holding the slack. Then you just lift it up like that. That way you leave about that much slack every time. And now this will take some more winding, so you could use a string winder on this. But this is the safest way to make sure it's not going to pull out. And the trick is you make sure you're winding down the post also. So make sure your string stays at the bottom of all the windings. And that way it won't come loose no matter what. And I'll show you that one more time. By the way, I did bevel the ends of all the pegs. They're all beveled. That way the end of the peg won't sit on the string button. Okay, so once you get that end anchored, then you do the same thing again. I'm going to turn the hole so that it's facing where I'm going to be poking it through. I like that better. Anyway, you poke it through, leave about this much slack approximately, go around, come back under your string like this, grab the end, pull it up, and you're wrapping it around your string, and then you've got about this much slack again, and then you just again make sure that your string is winding down the post. So when you go around that first time, you want to make sure you get this string under that wire that's there so that it winds down the post. And once you get that, you've got it. You can just go ahead and wind it up then. It'll never slip that way. A lot of times I'll pull it down like this on the side. That way I know I'm going under the string that's already on the post. And that way you're always wrapping down the post. Once you get it around there one time, then you can just take your string winder and just go to town. And cut it off flush with the top of the post. Okay, all the strings are on it. Let's just check this. This is my taper gauge. It's on the Products I Use page as well. I'm going to get on my close-up glasses so I can look at it really well. We check here at the 12th fret, and I know I'm high. I can already tell by looking. I'm pretty darn high. I'm going to call it 125. About 125 thousandths, I'm going to say, on that side. 125, and on the treble side, we're closer. We're not too far off on the treble side. About 95, I'm going to call it 95. All right, so I want to be 90 and 80. So we're 15ths high on that side, and we're 35 high on the other side, on the bass side. So we need to take 70 thousandths off the bass and 30 thousandths off the treble. 70 and 30, which is double what you're off by. And the reason is because you have to, you got to lower this twice as much because it's only halfway to this point. So you lower this about twice as much and you'll be real close when you're done. So we're going to take this back out and we're going to mark it. I'll show you how I mark it. Okay, the way I do this is I take a black magic marker and I just mark it. I'm just marking down low here. It'll be below the line of the sight, so you will not see it. Okay, so now let that dry a little bit. It needs to be, dry ink pretty much. I'll just dab it here and make it dry quicker. Then what you do is you take your calipers and set them at 70 thousandths. And then I mark that on here. Scratch it through that black, and you can see the line that way. So now I'll go to 30 again. There it is. And then we'll scratch the treble side also. Now, I don't think you're going to be able to see those two scratch marks. I can barely see them right here. But anyway, there are two scratch marks there. Now I can just slide this into the sander until it hits those marks. Okay, I just slid it in there and knocked it down, so it should be really close to perfect. Now I got that saddle in there and it's just absolutely tight. I would bet you could pick up the whole guitar with that. Of course, it's a very low saddle, so there's really no way to get a hold of it. But seriously, I think you could pick up the guitar with it. Let me see if it will. See, I can pick up the guitar. That's how tight it is. That's the way you want it. It's not excessively tight, but it's snug tight. It almost started to pull out of there, and that's perfectly fine. It should be about like that. You definitely don't want to have to force it down in the slot. That's not what you want. You don't want that, because that'll cause your bridge to break for that reason. All right, I'm going to string her back up here, and then we'll test her out one more time. Well, quite honestly, I was in a hurry to get this done, and I forgot to file these grooves out. Now, what I haven't told you is that I went to lighter strings on this. I'm putting in lights, so I probably don't need to file them out for the lights, but I'm going to anyway. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. I'm just going to give a light filing down in here. I think the strings are a little bit high anyway. It's possible that I'll have to revisit this anyway, because it might still be too high. But I'm just mainly trying to get everything where it doesn't pinch is what I'm really trying to get right now, because I don't want it pinching these strings. Yeah, this one I can tell is tight, so you don't want them tight. That's the finest one. Here's the second smallest one. Yeah, this one's bad too. And I'm sure this one's bad because this is the one that was popping like crazy all the time. Like I said, you're far better off having a little play in there than you are having them too tight. All right, let's go ahead and get her strung up and tuned up and see how she works. Okie dokie, you got her tuned back up. Let's just check the action and see where we're at. It should be pretty close. I would say that's right on the money, Sonny. Right at 90, might be 94 or 5. That's pretty close. This is barely 80. Yeah, it's just 80. It's almost 79, so it's pretty close. This one here, 93, 4, somewhere in there. So that's pretty good. Pretty good. That's about as good as you can do. Let me double check the tuning real quick, and then we'll play it for you. Okay, my friends, I've got the camera as close to the same spot as I can get it. I've got the guitar as close to the same spot as I can get it. I just got to get comfortable. And here's the G chord. Definitely cleaner. It's not as muffled. Sounding guitar. It's not the best I've heard, but it's not a bad sounding guitar. And now it plays pretty easy. Let's double check the action at the nut just to see if it's anywhere, you never know. Sometimes it can be off by quite a bit. And we'll just check it real quick and see where we're at there on the nut. I think it's fairly close. It doesn't feel real high or anything, but then again, we got it in the shop. We might as well fix it. I knew the G was a little high. Yeah, actually all the bass strings are a little high. Trebles are not that bad. All the wound strings are high. The E is just a fuzz high. I mean, just barely any. This G though is pretty high, so this bass E is pretty high, so we're gonna work on it first. It's still just, it's touching but barely touching, so I'm gonna get a little bit more. That should be enough. I think we'll be just about right. Now let me tune it up to pitch, because that's the best way to check it. Yep, that's just exactly right. And then when you press it, you don't see any movement. The A string's a little bit high, but not as bad as the first one. So we'll just go a little bit on this one. I think somebody had some filler in there. Doggone it, that's always bad.
Nope, it's still high. But somebody had filler in this one. It doesn't need the filler. You know, they probably did that because the frets weren't perfectly level. They were pretty close, but they weren't perfect. All right. When you're doing these nut adjustments, you're better off to just do it multiple times and not try to take off too much at once. Because then you'll be building a whole new saddle. I mean, a whole new nut. Wow, it's still not touching. All right, maybe it's more than I thought it was. All right, that ought to get us there. Yep, that's it right there. Just barely touching. The D is high. I don't know if it's as high as that one was, but it's high. All right, so let's go to my next file. Yep. Yeah, it's just fine. I almost went too low on that one, but I didn't. It's fine. It's not buzzing. The G string is just a fuzz high. We're going to take it down a little bit because it's high. Not going to take very much on it because it wasn't very high. Yep, that's right on the money now. Yep, it's just barely touching it. That's good though. That's really good. We're going to stop right there. I think that's as good as you can do on a guitar like this. And let's play it a little bit more and see how it sounds. Opinion, a perfectly set up Martin Sigma guitar. It don't get much better than that as far as the setup goes. You know, it's a Sigma. A lot of people have a stigma attached to a Sigma, but honestly, they're decent guitars. For the money you spend on them and everything, they're not bad. And you can't hardly do much better than that. It's plays easy. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, and we'll see you on the next video. Thank you very much.